record on this computer. So I'm hoping that that is now happening, fingers crossed. So good evening and welcome. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Mairi Taylor and I run my own business up here in Leicestershire. I'm a women's health coach, group exercise instructor, biomechanics coach, all kinds of interesting and exciting things. And obviously, like most of the people here this evening, I'm also a dōTERRA leader. I've been with dōTERRA for just over 18 months now, and I'm currently at gold rank. So I'm absolutely loving the opportunities, the teamwork, the membership, the community. And I'm also currently doing Diamond Club at the moment because just my life just isn't busy enough. My huge focus, speciality, passion is supporting women come home to themselves wherever they are in their life cycle. So from that perspective, I've become really passionate about how the oils, how the lifestyle changes, because I think it's really important to consider the dōTERRA wellness pyramid and how that is so impactful. And one of the reasons why I decided to come with dōTERRA, because that model absolutely fits in with where I am and my own values and belief system. So as people join us, we may have to mute them, but other than that, what we'll do is I will go through my presentation. I believe you normally have about 45 minutes to an hour. I can talk on this subject all day, as I'm sure some of you can. If you want to write any of your questions into the chat, that would be great, and we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end. Someone please remind me though to stop the Q&A. One of the things I do need to make us aware of is the following. So please note, I'm just going to tidy this away. So please note that the information in this presentation is for general educational and informational purposes only. It is not to be used as a substitution for individualized evaluation, treatment, and/or advice. So I think that's really important before we start the conversation. And again, I'm only going to focus on a small element of hormonal health. As I'm sure you appreciate, it's huge, it's wide, it's varied. There's bio-individuality. Sometimes what appears as a progesterone decrease may also be thyroid. So testing and so on may be required as well. But more importantly, we need to just start the conversation, and that's why we're here this evening. So this is just a little bit about me. The lovely picture on the left-hand side as you're looking at the screen is me aged 40. The picture on the right-hand side is me aged 50. So hopefully that's enough living proof that, you know, your age is not your cage, and that it is possible to make vibrant and health-orientated changes as you grow older to reduce and almost sometimes reverse the aging process. So let's just be a little bit celebratory of where we're at. And the reason I've got that little picture of that plant in the middle is that the changes that came into my life through introducing plant power have been phenomenal, and that's what's really started my journey. I started by making huge changes to my diet and went from ready meals and processed food to introducing fresh food and lots of green vegetables. And as a consequence, I saw my body shape change, I saw my hormonal health change. But I also will put my hands up and admit that I was somebody suffering from mild endometritis. It was definitely not level 4 as it is for some women. But I decided at that time to take the Mirena coil because that was the best option available to me. For me personally, it was life-changing. I don't regret it. I'm no longer using that, and I'm now supporting my hormonal health in my 50th year with essential oils, juices, vegetables, and getting out in nature. So, you know, it's really been a journey for me, as I'm sure it is for many of you. So that's just a little bit about me. I may share some other bits as we go through our session this evening. So tonight is really an opportunity for us to pause, breathe, and smile. I'm sure many of you appreciate that we keep running at life, particularly if this is your side hustle or it's your main biz. But, you know, getting your dōTERRA business off the ground, or any business, whilst you're maybe doing your investment job, whilst you're looking after a family, maybe looking after aging parents, or somewhere in the middle of all of that, life sometimes feels like it's just never going to stop. So I always invite people to take this opportunity. So well done, everybody who's made it. And obviously I appreciate some of you couldn't be here this evening because you've got other things on, and that's absolutely okay. How good of me to say so. So let's start by remembering that the female body has developed a natural monthly rhythm in which its hormone levels ebb and flow. This is as nature planned it and provided a woman's diet, environment, and lifestyle conform to its natural design. No part of the female life cycle needs to be thought of as an illness or a disabling condition. And I think this is a really, really important slide to start with. Now, obviously, there are times when, despite the best interests, things don't go to plan, you know, and I speak to lots of women who follow a good diet, who do X, Y, and Z, and they're still not in that happy hormonal place. But I think it's really important that we recognize that a woman's body, our cycle, is meant to ebb and flow and not be flatlined in the way that we see so often nowadays. And nor, you know, when many of us see our periods as an inconvenience, which particularly if, like me, historically, they were of that debilitating nature where you were either flooding or passed out or debilitated or taking time off work, then obviously they are an absolute inconvenience. But what I've now learned is that was all down to me not looking after myself, not having the right personal environment, too much stress, not enough joy. So what we're going to do this evening is have a look at just how we can support our hormonal health in so many ways. I'm just going to take a little check. Oh no, we are still recording. That's amazing. So how will you have FABulicious hormones? So my personal business is Fab Fitness, so everything I do has to be FABulicious. So we're going to look, excuse me, I'm just finishing that little virus that was coming from doing, you know, over the winter. So hormone balancing, we're going to look at stress reduction, nutrition for vitality, lifestyle changes, sleep and movement. And of course, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our gifts of the earth and talking about plant power. Now, all of these are important, but one of them is more important than the other. So I know we're all mute at the moment, but you might just want to hazard a guess at what it is. And for me, if you've never played top trumps, I have to inform you that stress reduction or stress will trump everything else that you do. So whether you can drink the greenest smoothies, you can have the most perfect exercise plan, you can be doing all kinds of other things, but if you are not reducing stress, then you are constantly going to be outdoing everything that is going on in your life, all the other good things. And this is why for some women, it just can feel like they're pushing a rock up a hard thing. Now, obviously as well, men have hormonal imbalances as well. So I don't think there's any reason why a man shouldn't be listening to this conversation. And in fact, I'm probably going to give some insights as to what the benefits would be of listening as a man as well. Okay, so let's move on. Let's first of all understand what a hormone is, because a hormone is actually a beneficial thing to the body, and if we didn't have hormones, we would all be dead. So we need our hormones, we need them to do exactly what it says here, a regulatory substance produced in an organism and transported in tissue fluids such as blood or sap to stimulate specific cells or tissues into action. So once again, isn't it so fascinating and so interesting that we're referring to blood and sap intertwined. And this again for me is one of the beauties of harnessing the power of plants, is because we are so similar and so congruent with our the plants surrounding us. So we're going to focus on 2 key hormones. There are many, and if I was going to spend the time that's required to look at all of the hormones in the system and that we need to be focusing on, we would, as I say, be here on a 2 or 3 day workshop. But most of us know about estrogen, and most of us know about progesterone, or maybe you don't. It always fascinates me what we do and don't know, because if you're anything like me, sex education or hormonal education back in the day, it might be better now, was basically how not to get pregnant, and you know, the fact that when a man and a woman got together it could make babies, and that was it. And if you were bleeding, that meant you weren't pregnant, and you had to take care of the rest of the month. Obviously there's so much more to it than that. We've moved on, you know, we're always learning. But estrogen is always demonized, and I understand the reason why, but we also need to recognize that estrogen is vital for our vitality. And the other thing I want to highlight here, which is so important, is that quite often, once a woman has gone through the menopause, she will think that she's no longer producing estrogen, or it's not important to look after her hormonal well-being. Wrong. I'm really sorry to tell you that, you know, again, if you did not have estrogen in your system, you would be dead. You would not be functioning as a, you know, as a vital, healthy, well woman. And this is one of the key things. So post-menopause, we stop producing the estrogen from our ovaries, but we produce it from other organs, and we take it from the bones and so on and so forth, which is why for some women you see bone thinning post or during menopause, because as the estrogen levels drop, the body will leach it from elsewhere. And if we're not looking after all of those pillars, so our nutrition, our stress, our movement, and you know, making sure we do all we can to balance our hormones, you can find in your late 60s and 70s, as some of my clients are finding, that all of a sudden they're having menopausal-like symptoms. So let's talk about estrogen. It helps to build up the uterine lining. It's a pro-growth hormone, so this is one of the reasons we get huge concerns about it, particularly linked to cancer. It's necessary for fertility and ovulation. It helps us to have healthy sex organs. It keeps the joints lubricated. So if we think about coming up to the time of menopause, when people start to get a little bit dry and cranky, then it may be that our estrogen levels are getting too low and we're not supporting them either. So again, everything in balance and everything in flow at the right time. It also helps to keep cortisol and thyroid in balance. So isn't that interesting when we think about the number of women who have thyroid imbalances and thyroid problems? Is anyone actually checking and looking at the big picture and looking at their estrogen levels as well, and making sure that everything is in balance? Because quite often, when the rest of the endocrine system comes out of balance, the thyroid gland jumps in and does what it shouldn't be doing and tries to support the whole system. Cortisol as well, for those of us who aren't aware, is one of the stress hormones, and again, estrogen helps to keep it in check. So moving on, let's talk about progesterone. So progesterone is the balancer to our estrogen, okay? So if we think about estrogen being what helps things to grow, think about a lovely luscious lawn. Estrogen is what helps the grass to grow. Then it is the progesterone that helps to keep that lawn balanced and looking good. So they are dancing together with each other the whole time. And progesterone is vital again for adrenal health. Again, we can have a huge discussion about whether or not adrenal fatigue is a real condition or not, but there's plenty of women out there just being wiped out and you know, running on empty. And again, is anyone looking and thinking about what we can do to be supporting progesterone levels? It's necessary for energy. It helps to counterbalance estrogen, as I've already said. It's necessary for fertility and ovulation. And progesterone is really important for keeping us pregnant as well. So that's something else to be aware of if anybody's working with clients with fertility issues. you know, is making sure that all of their hormone levels are being checked and doing what we can to support them. Necessary for healthy bones, for relaxation and libido, because progesterone is actually what gives us that little bit of va-va-vu, not just the passion oil. And you know, it's really important that we're making sure, you know, we should have a healthy libido. That is a good indicator of good, healthy, happy hormones. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an insight into progesterone. So as I say, the two of them dance together, and it's really important that we help to keep them in balance, because for some of us, they're doing that too much, and for others, you know, they just go with the flow. They dance as they should be. It's beautiful to watch. For the rest of us, it's like watching that crazy auntie on the dance floor. Okay, so I'm going to hide this bit again so we can actually see what's going on here. Now, did you know that there are actually 4 phases to the menstrual cycle? Sometimes some people would say there's 5, but I'm going with the 4. So the 4 phases are menses. This is from day 1 of bleeding to maybe day 5, 6, or 7, whatever your normal cycle is. And remember, it's normal for you. We are not robots. Every single one of us will have a different cycle, a different flow. But what we want to do is learn to go with the flow, get present, and listen to our bodies. Okay, so as I say, menses is the first phase of the menstrual cycle, day 1 of bleeding. Now, I know there may be some women listening who are on hormonal support, and that's absolutely that, you know, of course, that's absolutely okay. We all have to make and be allowed to make the life choices that suit us. As I say, I would never regret, and you know, have never regretted being on the Mirena coil. I know for some women it has absolutely been the worst thing that they could possibly do. So again, you know, we just need to get quiet and listen to our bodies, and not be told by other people that what we're thinking or feeling is just crazy talk on our behalf. So as we can see, during menses, all of the hormones are low, and we're looking here at estrogen, we're looking here at luteinizing hormone, we're looking at progesterone, we're looking at the follicle stimulating hormone, and we're also looking at testosterone as well. And as you can see, in the first half of the menstrual cycle, our estrogen is much higher than our progesterone. In fact, our progesterone and testosterone, well, our progesterone levels are probably the same as a man. During this phase of the month, we get a sharp rise in the testosterone. So again, we need testosterone, but just like anything, like the whole, what we call the Goldilocks effect, we don't want too much, and we certainly don't want too little either. I'm just having a quick sip of water. I hope you've got your water with you as well, ladies and gentlemen. So we need those rises, and then you can see as we move into the second phase, the luteal phase. So this is where the luteal put my teeth in there. This is where the luteinizing hormone will start, you know, get a little bit more play. But more importantly, as you can see, now our progesterone levels are much higher than our estrogen levels, and this is what's really important to keep us sort of balanced in the second half of the cycle. So let's go back and look at each of these stages. I'll go as slowly as I can, because what I want to share with you is the why, the how, the do, and the what, and more importantly, what some of the emotional phases may be, and therefore what essential oils we might want to be using at different phases of our cycle. Okay, so let's look at phase 1. From day 1, so from the first day of bleeding to when your last day of bleeding may be. So this is our menstrual phase. This is the why phase. This is when we start to get subtle messages from our bodies. We can become very self-analytical, and we can have repeated worries and fears. This may also be a time of overwhelm, and certainly should be a time to say no to RSVPs so you don't become a last minute letdown. Does that resonate with anybody? Okay, so if we think about some of those emotional needs at this time of the month during our menstruation, this should be a time for getting quiet, for getting still. If anyone's ever read the book The Red Tent, this is when historically we would get together, we wouldn't do work, we would be, you know, sitting with the rest of the women of the group, learning and, you know, being supported through this time. Obviously, for most of us, including myself, you know, you still have to get up, get on and do your work and do your job, which for me is why these essential oils really are a gift of the earth. So if we're finding ourselves being very self-analytical, how about using your bergamot or your smart and sassy at this time of the month? Both of those can help calm that self-critical voice. And bergamot in particular for me, which is the oil of self-acceptance, can be really helpful when we're becoming self-critical. Oh, someone's come on, and just make sure you're muted if you're joining us. You might also want to think, if you keep getting those repeated worries and fears, then how about maybe juniper berry or the beautiful peace blend, carrying your peace touch around with you to make sure that you're dampening these worries and fears. But let's not ignore them, because they may be coming up for a reason, but what we don't want to is be finding ourselves debilitated by them. For me, one of my favorite oils for overwhelm is Zengest or Digest Zen, because not only does it deal with, you know, overeating, bloating and all the rest of it, but it can also be used for when we're overwhelmed by our thoughts and by life. How about using Melaleuca and On Guard together to help support those energetic boundaries and support anyone who has trouble saying no? And also as well, at this time of the month, you want to be looking at as many estrogen detoxification strategies as possible. So this is the time when we want to be making sure that all of that excess estrogen is being detoxified from the body, that our endocrine system is working well. So we want to be eating cruciferous vegetables, looking at our terra greens if we don't like those greens. I love to use Zendocrine at this time of the month, the detoxification blend, and I'll rollerball it on my big toe and the ball of my foot. It's also a time for taking extra omega. So for me, I use the LLV, but I only use half a dose. But at this time of the month, I'll take the full dose of omegas. And as well, you might want to be thinking about balance as well, just to ground you. So lots of different examples of oils that we might want to be using at this time of our monthly cycle. And I think even if we're on any kind of hormonal support, we may feel these feelings coming up. And so it's a good idea to know which oils you can use on an emotional level. Then once we've stopped with the menstruation, we move into late week 1, the whole of week 2, fully into the follicular phase. This is our how phase. This is when our physical energy starts to increase. As we move towards ovulation, this is our Venus week. This is when we're truly blooming and glowing, and this is when we're sending out the signals. The flower is looking for the honeybee. I need say no more, particularly with Valentine's Day just round the corner. But romance is for every day, not just for Valentine's. So in our Venus week, we start to become more creative. How about supporting and enhancing that with Wild Orange and everyone's favorite Motivate? This is the time to start looking at the projects. How are we going to solve the problems? Let's get our lemon for focus, brainstorming, citrus bliss and passion. It makes me smile that we're using passion for brainstorming, but we're also using passion as we move into our ovulation phase. This is when we're at our most sociable, or should be at our most sociable, if our cycle is balanced and working well for us. So cedarwood, the oil of community. And again, this is when we can be doing those high energy, challenging workouts. So for me, maybe looking at peppermint for performance, or adding in some Mito 2 Max if you're not doing so already. And as nature intended, we've gone from being self-critical, analytical. You know, we might just have been in that analytical phase, and now we're thinking about, oh, how do we solve? What are the problems that were coming up for me in menses? How am I going to solve them? And then when we move into ovulation, which is when we are should be at our most energetic, this is our do phase. Yeah, but for some of us, this is maybe we may be feeling pelvic pain, because as we get to that peak of estrogen and testosterone rises, and then it's deeply dropping. So how about at this time of the month using our deep blue, our soothing blend, just to support any of that pelvic pain? I know for many women, they can actually feel themselves ovulating. This may also be a time for those mid-cycle, blinding, debilitating, you know, pain between the eyes and around the brain and, you know, the top of the head. So this is maybe when we want to be making sure that we've got our frankincense and peppermint to hand and using that to support us in this way. Again, this is a real time of connection and community. So, you know, this is about using cedarwood again, or maybe whisper. This is a time to have the challenging conversations. So oils to support us there, maybe elevation, spearmint, black pepper, breathe, or even hope. So you can see already how, you know, halfway through the cycle, we're already using some of the oils from our Home Essentials and Family Physician Kit, the Melaleuca, the On Guard, the Smart and Sassy. We've got the lemon coming in. And remember as well, lemon is a great oil for supporting the cleansing of the body. So again, something at the menses and all the way through the month, just to support our system. You may again also want to revisit bergamot and maybe using patchouli or deep blue to keep yourself composed at this time of the month. And then after ovulation, we move into the luteal phase. This is the what phase. This is when so many of us start to feel irritable, the mood swings. Basically, this is the 2 weeks of PMS. This is when everyone else runs for the hills. This is when the socks on the bathroom floor all of a sudden become an issue. So this is a time for us. This is where we really want to be balancing ourselves out. Our progesterone should be rising, but if we've got lazy progesterone, which can sometimes be the case, or because of our lifestyle, our nutrition, other things going on in our lives, other imbalances in the endocrine system, then we may not get the rise that we need. It can be a time of bloating. So where are we going to call? We're going to get that Zengest out. Irritability, maybe we're going to use Forgive, Whisper, or Wild Orange. Mood swings, elevation, cravings, grapefruit, or get that Smart and Sassy out. We've got, but it's also a time when our energy may soften and we turn inwards. This is when we start to feel maybe that our true self is being disrespected, and this is why the socks on the bathroom floor, or the toilet seat not being down, or the fact that, you know, the dog isn't being walked or the hamster being cleaned out, all of a sudden, you know, can make us feel disrespected and feel invisible. So again, you could be using On Guard if you're feeling overly sensitive, ginger, but we know that's in Zengest, cassia, bergamot. So you've heard me talking a lot about bergamot. Bergamot's definitely been a game changer for me. Cinnamon, well, we know that's in On Guard. Lemon, we know that's in one of our kits. Citrus Bliss. But again, if we've got wild orange and we've got lemon, maybe we could diffuse those together. It's also the time when we want to be slowing down, so maybe getting our serenity out. And this is a time for yoga and Pilates, and also maybe leaning into the fact that we're looking for and needing that little bit of sweetness in our lives. We're looking for those carbohydrates. So it's the time maybe to be getting those raw chocolates out and making them with, you know, some of those beautiful oils that are going to support our hormonal and emotional well-being. And this again is something else I want you to think about when we're looking at, well, where's the stress in my life? If we're looking at exercise, if you're a bit of a gym bunny or you love to run and so on and so forth, then maybe just during menses or just before menses, this is the time for yoga and Pilates to complement what you're doing. During the follicular phase, this is when, our strength starts to rise. So maybe we put in some strength training. We want to maybe exercise with other people as we move into the ovulatory phase. We want to be training with others in the luteal. So it's good to be able to mix and match. So as you can see, there's lots of different oils that we can use at different times of the month to keep us balanced and in a good place. And that's what we really want to be able to do. Yes, we should be able to ebb and flow, but more importantly, we shouldn't be crashing. And sorry, that's my hands smacking together, rather like a yacht or a boat trying to sail in, stormy seas. We want our waters to be flowing freely and calmly and being able to just bob up and down as those changes come. So, yes, there should be a little bit of discomfort. Yes, we might feel a few mood swings, but if we look after our nutrition, we use all of our gifts of the earth, then, we should actually see a much calmer month for everybody in our lives. And, just to prove that this isn't just me talking gobbledygook, it is actually being used and was used very, very successfully by the British gold-winning Olympic hockey team. Their coaches actually tracked every single woman in that team's cycle for the 4 years leading up to the Olympics. So they knew exactly how to feed them at the time of the month, how to train them, how to coach them. So when to be soft. So why am I doing that with soft? So when to be soft, when to be hard, when they could push them, when they needed to pull them back, when they should be going and doing maybe some more stretching and relaxation, when they should be lifting the heavy weights, when they should be doing their cardio and matching their food. Because as well, when we think, during our period, we want to be looking after, that root chakra as well. So we want those warm, nourishing, blood healing foods. We want to be supporting estrogen detoxification. As we move through our cycle, we'll be looking for lighter foods, more plant-based foods and more lean proteins, and so on and so forth. And then we come back and we cycle round again. So those of you that are really into fitness will know that we do actually, recommend carb cycling and so on and so forth. Well, of course we do. It fits in with our natural feminine flow as well. So that's all I wanted to share there for the moment, but just sort of in summary, some other oils to consider. And if you do not have this little baby in your life, this bottle of this 10ml bottle of Claricalm, £22.80 on your wholesale account every month. That's cheaper than all that wine and chocolate that we're necking to try and calm or soothe ourselves. Then you are missing a really, really important trick. But like anything, it only works if you use it. So for me personally, I use the Claricalm every day of the month, and I use it twice a day. I roll it hip bone to hip bone, morning and evening, and I do not go without it. It was interesting, at the weekend I was doing some workshops, and again there was some girls there using the Claricalm but inconsistently. You are not going to get results from anything you do inconsistently. So what I do, I keep it nice and simple, is I have one of these little spotty boxes, and other small boxes are available, and in there I have all the oils that I'm going to be talking about by my bedside. So I've got my Claricalm, I've got my Deep Blue, I've got my Hope. I love the Hope oil because on an emotional level it pulls you back out of the darkness, but it's also got quite a few of the oils. So it's got bergamot in there, which for me, as I say, a bit of a game changer. So I wear that as my perfume. Personally, I cannot stand Claricalm. I hate the smell of it, but I will use it every day. And as I say, on the hip bone to hip bone or on the outside of your ankles. I also, once I start menstruating, sorry, I'm just going to have a little drink. So in here, I've got some fizzy water and some grapefruit oil, because grapefruit oil is my happy oil. It helps my body with progesterone balancing. So, you know, again, really important for me. And I do actually notice when I haven't taken my happy juice, as I call it, I can tell a difference in my mood and my clarity. So as I was saying, when it comes to my period, when I'm actually starting to menstruate, I will start to use Claricalm every couple of hours, layer it with Deep Blue, and use Zendocrine whilst I'm menstruating. And that, I've played around with all of it, and that has become my happy, healthy program. But please remember bio-individuality. I was using the Zendocrine all month, as were some of my clients, but what we were finding is it was making our flow too heavy. So whilst we were pain-free, particularly for some of the girls, it was just, the flow was too heavy. So we dialed back on the Zendocrine, and that's made a big difference. Other oils as well, thyme and oregano, geranium, and you know, what's great is geranium's in our clary sage, grapefruit oil, as I've said, Claricalm, Zendocrine, frankincense, and peppermint, and I've talked about them through the month. But let's just so we get a bit of a better understanding of clary sage, because people often ask me, well, can I still use it post-menopause? And I'm like, absolutely, hell yeah. So at the moment, I'm sharing this with women and girls from the age of 10 to 70 plus. So clary sage is beneficial for hormonal balance, hot flashes, infertility, mood swings, PMS, premenopause. Now, premenopause is the 6 to 15 years leading up to your menopause. Menopause is actually one day in time. It's a historical date, and it's the last day of your last period, followed by 365 days of no bleeding. So many of us, if you're a woman over the age of 35, I'm really sorry to tell you, you're probably starting to feel some of the hormonal imbalances that come with perimenopause. And in particular, we become less tolerant of stress, and we become less tolerant of carbohydrates. We become a little bit more insulin resistant. So all of a sudden, all the things that we used to do to lose weight or stay happy and healthy, all of a sudden do not appear to be working anymore. Clary sage can also help with postpartum discomfort, endometritis, dysmenorrhea, breast enlargement, abdominal cramps. So it might be why my breasts have got a little bit bigger than they used to be when I lost loads of weight, but that's okay, I'm not in pain anymore. Bergamot. Okay, so bergamot again in the Claricalm. So it's coming up as a big hot favorite. It calms agitation, depression, emotional stress, environmental stress, mental stress, performance stress, physical energy is improved. It supports PMS, and it can be a sedative, and it just supports stress in general. Many women find that just as soon as they use Claricalm, if they don't use it regularly, that they notice a quietening almost immediately after using it. We've got ylang-ylang for its calming, aphrodisiac, supports hair loss, hormonal balance, low libido. Again, it can be a sedative. Fennel is there for digestive issues and tissue and toxin cleansing. And again, as I say, many of us can get bloating and discomfort. I'm not quite sure what Palmarosa does. I didn't have time to, I don't ever think to look that up. Geranium again. Geranium calms agitation. It soothes the breast, dysmenorrhea, and supports endometritis, low libido, menorrhagia. After miscarriage, again, it can be very supportive. It can support pelvic pain syndrome and PMS. So again, this is why I think we should be using it all month, particularly if you're someone that's suffering from pelvic pain or discomfort in the middle of the month. You've got Vitex and chasteberry in there that can support low progesterone. Again, it's supporting the body to do its job. It's not physically doing it. I think that's really important to remember. It's about using these gifts of the earth to allow the body to come back into its natural place. This supports menstrual irregularities, menopause, PMS, female fertility, preventing miscarriage in patients with progesterone insufficiency, and treating fibrocystic breast. So as you can see, we've got, you know, for me, if you've got your Home Essentials kit, a clary sage, a endocrine, and for me, because I'm perimenopausal, so my estrogen levels are starting to lower, and remember that our progesterone levels lower too, which is why you see so many perimenopausal and menopausal women feeling anxious and depressed and being put on antidepressants, when maybe actually we could be using Claricalm and some phytoestrogens to balance them out. I would always try. So stress we've talked about. I'm really conscious of the time. So this is the 21st epidemic. Basically, the effects of stress on the hormones. Controlling stress is a key to your fat loss success. So if you are somebody that is trying to constantly lose weight and is particularly seeing that middle age spread, then if you are stressed, it doesn't matter how many marathons you run or how green your juice is or how little you eat, you are not going to see the results that you want. It's one of the most serious threats to testosterone production. So remember, we needed that testosterone just before ovulation. So if you're stressed, you're not going to be getting that peak that you need. One of the most effective ways to increase DHA, now DHA is a precursor to over 18 hormones, is to manage stress. Stress is one of the worst thyroid offenders. So again, people, we're seeing all of these women and men with thyroid conditions. Who's looking at their lifestyle conditions? Who's asking them to pause, breathe, smile, inviting them to sit or lie with their legs up against the wall and just put on some serenity? And again, stress increases cortisol production. As I said, DHA, the fountain of youth, a precursor to 18 hormones, including testosterone. It's made in the adrenal glands from cholesterol. So if anyone out there is on a low-fat diet, please stop it now. It also makes estrogen. So again, really important for us perimenopausal and menopausal women. And, well, all of us, to tell the truth. And if you are somebody who's thinking, well, how do I increase my DHA? Let me show you how. I give you permission to look at kittens, puppies, chickens, babies. Basically, let's make fun, have fun and make pleasure a priority rather than a luxury. Stop making sure that everybody else's lives are filled with fun and joy and start creating and having some in your own. So, essential oils for reducing cortisol and stress. This is being recorded, so you can look at it, but that mood management kit, Whisper, is great for helping the body to manage cortisol levels, but look at all of those beautiful oils that I'm sure some of you are aware of. Nutrition, very quickly. Again, stop dieting. Eat little and often, or eat as you need it to be. Please don't skip breakfast. That doesn't mean you have to eat immediately the moment you get up, but you must break that fast in some way. Eliminate sugar and refined carbs. Add protein to each meal of whatever source suits your values and belief system. Please make sure you're eating good fats. Good fats are essential for hormonal and brain health. Pay attention to what you eat. Stop drinking your calories and change how you think about food. Okay, we obviously couldn't do a webinar on hormonal health or women's health or men's health or vitality without discussing our LLV, because basically in this kit, you've got your cleansers, you've got your omegas, and you've got your nutrients as well. So as we know, we've got almost 12 portions of vegetables and fruit in the microplex. We've got our EO omegas for our brain and hormone health. And then in the Alpha CRS, we've got all of the necessary tools for cleansing the system. And that is vital to good hormonal health, allowing all of the endocrine system to do its job as it should. So let's crowd out the bad stuff with vegetables. If you do not like your veggies, then get your Terra Greens in your morning smoothie. If you can't even be bothered to that, let's pull on our big girl pants and big boy pants. Let's make a little shot of it and get it down us. Yeah, we should ideally be having at least a pound of vegetables a day, and that's green veggies. So forget your measly 7 portions. Let's get the veggies in there and build it up slowly. This is always an interesting one, given that it's now 8:45. Ideally, you should be switching your laptop off at least 2 hours before you are going to bed. Yeah, it has been shown, and it was a Swedish study, I think, or one of the Scandinavian countries, that women who were exposed to blue light after 10 o'clock at night had a higher risk of cancer. So if you are at all worried or concerned about breast cancer or have a family history of it, then one of the things that you could be doing is not making cakes for fairs, but switching your laptop off. And also, if you think about it, if you've got a laptop on your lap, then the screen is shining or is directly at your breast. And if it's on your husband or your partner's lap, it's directly heating up nicely his testicles. Not so great for his testosterone levels either. So we want to be making sure that we're detoxifying well, so through the liver, the skin, the lungs, the colon, and the kidneys. So again, we could be using our LLV, our Zendocrine. We do want to get moving so that we're sweating, and we also want to be making sure that our skin is able, because it's our biggest organ, to do its job. So this is again where we want to be making sure that we're reducing our toxic load. And I know for many of us, we are part of this dōTERRA tribe because we're looking to reduce our toxic load. There are so many endocrine and hormonal disruptors in the makeup many of us may have been using, or we see our family and friends using, in their cleaning products, in the brand new sofa that they're getting. You know, we know from previous continued education there is more toxic overload and environmental stress in our homes than there is walking down the street. So we want to be making sure that we're lowering it as much as possible. And again, we want to be looking at you know, our dietary toxicants as well. So the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old but building the new. You know, and that was the case for me. You know, as I hit my 40s, you know, I was somebody, if you'd open my fridge door, it had Marks and Spencer's ready meals because they're the best. There was very little vegetables going into my diet, cartons and cartons of apple juice and orange juice. I ate huge amounts of fruit, which I now know is maybe not the best for me, because for some women, it can actually lower your progesterone levels, too much fruit fiber, and certainly that I know is the case for me. I've done enough personal experimentation now. And, you know, I used to drink Actimel and so on and so forth, and I thought I was being healthy. It's only when I started introducing copious amounts of vegetables that I started to see the difference. Control what you can control, make the changes that you can influence, and basically go green, get quiet and listen, because trust me, the plants are there ready to tell us what we need if only we can get quiet and get in tune with ourselves and with them. So ladies and gentlemen, the next steps are over to you. So I'm going to stop the recording now.